some Mets here. For all your Mets here, let's go. Bring it home. Bring it home. Bring it home
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Mets Hot Stove Live right here on the channel. Don't forget to please hit on that like button. If you're a new subscriber of the channel, say what's up in the chat. You will get a shout out. And I do have to have a little bit of 1986 vibes here because the 1986 team did not magically appear in 1 year. It was a process from 1983, 84, 85, and then 86. You know, the acquisition of Keith Hernandez, Gary Carter, the couple of, Mookie working his way through the farm system, through the team. And, of course, Strawberry, Gooden, amongst others, Dykstras of the world, all those guys, the Darlings, Roscoe's, all those guys. I wanted to get this 1986 vibe tonight feeling because it was a process to get to 1986. It just didn't miraculously happen overnight, and they became a great team and a team nobody wanted to mess with. It was a process. So I wanted to make sure to realize that this is a first step to a process where you want to grow into a team that can be that great, that exciting. And it might take a year or two, it might take 3 years. It might even be a little bit of a surprise this year. But because of free agency, because of the possibility of the farm system and the young players, that can be so much a possibility going forward, I wanted to bring the vibes of tonight of bringing together Mets fans and explaining to them that, yes, you can be frustrated with an offseason. Yes, you can be pissed off about the year we had last year and what happened in 2022. But all this is leading to a process. Nimmo getting a contract, McNeil getting a contract, traded for Lindor, Pete Alonso, and you heard David Stearns in his last interview saying that he really, they're invested in. They want to invest in Pete Alonso. They know how much he's important to the fans and the team and everything like that. And that step to a process. And the difference with, I think, when it comes to this team in regards to similar to 86 was that the Mets have guys in the farm that can be potentially outstanding. I'm not saying they're going to be Darryl or Doc. I think that's way too crazy to look at. But, seeing Christian Scott, who is a guy that everybody really, really likes in the farm system, Drew Gilbert, who is just running through the farm system when he was with Houston and now with the Mets and could be on the verge of being on this major league roster fairly shortly into the season. And who knows, maybe if he has a great spring training and, who knows with Bader's health, who knows? I know that's a lot of things to talk about, but it is the potential to be very possible, a very similar type of concept and investment in the team and the new philosophy and the way it just didn't take 1 or 2 years to build because they did try to spend money to win with veterans, right? And they're trying to move back onto that, the core that they have are those veterans now. And the 2025 offseason is going to be a very interesting offseason with Alonso, Soto, the ton of pitchers that are available on the market. It is very possible that the way they're going about it here and how it is a process when it comes to, no, Mike, that's not true at all. Christian Scott is supposed to projected to be a top line starting pitcher, number 1, number 2. Mike Vasil, on the other hand, could be a number 4, number 5, possibly a middle, worst case scenario, a middle reliever, right? I mean, Mike, you have to be realistic and realize how big of a prospect these guys are. Drew Gilbert is one of the best outfield prospects in baseball, let alone in the Met system. He's number one in the Met system. And well, depending on which one you look at, some have Drew Gilbert, some have Jet Williams. And you have to remember that. I know, Mike, you can be negative all you want, but the fact of the matter is the Mets have a top 10 farm system, and it took them 2 years to build a top 10 farm system when it takes 3 to 5 years just to get to that mark. And that's in a full rebuild mode. And the Mets didn't have to fully rebuild to get a top 10 farm system. That doesn't happen in baseball. It never happens in baseball. Like it takes years to build a farm system. And usually it's because of you trading away your big time players. And they didn't really have to do that. They traded old veterans to get to a top 10 farm system along with the dress. No, Mike, I'm not saying that. But you don't need break power and power to be exceptionally good in this league anymore either. I'm not saying they're going to be Dallas Strawberry. He also Drew Gilbert, there's a possibility he won't be a crackhead either. So we have to realize that as well. No, Mike, but I'm not being delusional. What I'm saying is the fact that these guys have the potential to be really damn good. I'm not saying you have to be Dallas Strawberry. You don't even have to. Christian Scott doesn't have to be Doc Gooden to be an outstanding pitcher, right? It's hard to get to that level. But if he reaches the level of, say, a top line starting pitcher, even a number two, a solid number two, that's more than capable and possible for the New York Mets. He's had a really good season. Not only do you have Tidwell, Hamill, you got Vazor, who I think can be a back of the rotation type of guy. Worst case being, a pretty damn good middle reliever that I think he can be definitely a number 5. Yeah, and people talking about Gilbert. Gilbert's the type of guy that is he's got that Lenny Dykstra type of energy, run through walls, like goes 150 miles an hour at every moment. And what's up, Subway to Shay? Anthony is in the chat, so say what up to him and subscribe to his channel and his pod as well. Yeah, he's the full package. And again, a lot of these guys, they always, they can show the power all they want. It really determines what they can do at the major league level. But all indications are he's a premium bat for one of our prospects. His defensive capabilities are outstanding. Yeah, exactly. You can say that about everything. Jacob deGrom was drafted as a shortstop, and he became one of the best pitchers in baseball. Pete Alonso was a Mets top prospect, but a lot of people think that he wasn't going to. I mean, Dominic Smith was the guy that everybody was talking about when Pete Alonso came up. And it was about, Dominic Smith is probably going to be the better player, because an all-around better player because of his defensive capabilities, and everybody believed he was going to be a decent power bat. Nobody expected Pete Alonso to have that first base job when he first came up. So a lot of things can happen. And the fact of the matter is, when you got Cohen's money and you got a top 10 farm system, you can be dangerous very quickly. And it's still a process because of the fact that you have to remember that the first 2.5 years of Steve Cohen, they had no farm system to work with at all. So the only way to put a roster together was to spend a ton of money, and a lot of free agents now are over 30 years old and probably at their prime or just past their prime. That's the guys that are becoming free agents now. Juan Soto being a free agent is an anomaly. It's not happening anymore. That's why Juan Soto is going to be extremely important for a lot of teams to go after, right? But free agents now are going to be 30 plus. And that's why you got to develop a farm system. And that's why, if you can get 2 or 3 guys that develop into, good to great major leaguers, you got good things going for you, because that's money that you don't have to spend at those positions. Like if Christian Scott becomes a solid number 2, well, guess what? You don't need to, go after a Walker Buehler to be a number 2, or, whoever else is going to be on the market next year that could be a number 2 type of guy. If Kodai Senga can get even better, well, maybe you really don't need that big-time ace. Now, I don't believe Kodai Senga is a top-line ace, I would say. But, again, if you look at his ERA last year and the way he pitched in the second half, and that's with teams having a book on him later in the year, he pitched extremely good. And he had an under 3 ERA, 2.98 ERA, and he was the third, I think it was second or third best ERA in the National League, and he was 5th best in Major League Baseball. So, there's a lot of things where you can look at it and say, guess what? Things can happen here rather quickly for this team. A couple of moves in free agency. This year we know it's a year where they're going into the season playing for the first half, right? If things don't work out, you got 151 guys on 1-year deals that you brought in that could either be is pitching for a contract, which can be a good sign because they want to get that contract, their long-term deal. And on top of that, if it doesn't work out and the Mets have a bad first half, well, the deadline's going to be a big sell for the Mets, and they're going to obtain a ton of assets no matter who they trade. And a lot of the 1-year deals are trades. Now, I'm still very interested. I still don't think the Mets are going to trade Pete Alonso, even if it is a bad season. I think there's a possibility if they get blown away with an offer that they would trade Pete Alonso, but that's here nor there. But the 1-year deals are gone if it's having a bad season in the first half. And we'll get to the topics in a little bit, but I wanted to talk about that because of the fact that, to have a top 10 farm system without a complete rebuild doesn't happen in Major League Baseball. Teams don't do that, right? The Houston Astros lost 3 years in a row, lost 100 games. They basically shut down their TV network, the TV network that was covering them, because they were getting no ratings. They were getting 0 ratings, right? They basically shut down their network because that was covering them, and nobody went to their games for 3 years straight and lost 100 games to get draft picks, and that's how they became a powerhouse. But the Mets didn't have to do that. They're not making the playoffs every year, but they were actually buying players and veteran players and buying a competitive roster while building a farm system without trading assets in your farm system to try to make the team better. Now, it didn't work out, but I'd rather try without killing your farm system and spending money, because that is the luxury of having an owner like Steve Cohen. That's fine. But you also have to build your farm system. Again, you look at the Yankees, you look at the Dodgers, you look at the Braves, right? The Braves don't spend any money, even though, their contracts that they've been giving these guys are starting to, load up their payroll a little higher. And I think they're probably like a top 7 payroll now. But, you have to trickle in a few guys from your farm system. Again, a lot of these guys in a farm are going to be tradable assets because not everybody's going to fit in your roster. The Mets do have about 47 shortstops in their farm system, and a lot of them are top rated. And the Mets, what do they have, like 7 top 100 prospects, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 8. Yeah, but it doesn't make sense to trade Pete Alonso now. Those things don't happen in the offseason, rarely, especially in a year where the Mets, if they do have a solid first half, you have enough assets to buy without hurting your farm system. And a lot of people wanted them to go for it last year when they were 6.5 games out of a wild card spot, but you already had the writing on the wall. So I don't think anybody's going to make a massive offer for Pete Alonso right now. Not right now. At the trade deadline, depending on where the Mets are. Yeah, Mike, exactly my point. Again, even if the Mets are having a bad first half, if you're not going to get blown away with an offer, don't trade Pete Alonso, because the Mets can still be the biggest offer for Alonso. So technically, you're not going to be losing him at the end of the year for nothing. So, well, again, everybody's talking about the Mets brass holding back for JD Martinez. Every team in baseball is holding back. Whoever's going for JD Martinez is holding back. So let's not act like the Mets are the only team, holding their hands in their pockets and trying to hold on to every dollar. Every team is doing it. Well, Mike Bader is not trash. If he can remain healthy, he's an excellent center fielder. And again, I'm not worried too much about Bader because, honestly, guys, I think if the Mets didn't get Bader, I would put money on it that the Mets would get every chance for Drew Gilbert to be the center fielder going into opening day, and that could still be possible. Drew Gilbert got an invite to spring training, and not saying that he's going to take Bader's job, but I'm telling you this right now. There's a pretty good chance that Bader probably will get hurt at some point in the season. There's a pretty good point. Bader, if he stays healthy in spring training, even if he doesn't perform with the bat, he'll probably be the center fielder because of his defensive purposes. But don't be shocked. Drew Gilbert, I'm telling you right now, Drew Gilbert is good enough right now to be the center fielder on the Mets. That's a guarantee. I feel that 100%. And I'm going down the spring training. I will be in the backfields because that's what I love to do. I like to go to the backfield. I can care less about the main field, to be honest with you. I like the backfield because that's where the young kids, the top prospects, the minor leaguers that you don't really hear about. You watch them in the back, and you could just feel it and see it sometimes. Yeah, Mike, I understand that, but also the Yankees have Harrison Bader at starting center field. So let's not act like he's a defensive replacement on a good team. He was playing for the New York Yankees, who was a playoff team. So let's not act like he wasn't a starting center fielder. Bader's a starting center fielder. He is not a defensive replacement. He's a starting center fielder for a good team. Now you can say whatever you want about about this team, but again, there's especially with the bullpen that the Mets have put together. A lot of people are liking the bullpen a lot more than even I'm liking the bullpen. I think the bullpen is a lot more solid than people are giving it credit for. But there's a lot of people in the baseball world that are really liking this bullpen because the Mets can go a lot of different ways with this bullpen. Do you really care about what Kodai Senga did in September against the Braves? The Braves, were just beating up everybody offensively. But, Kodai Senga was one of the best pitchers in baseball. He was the third best pitcher in the National League, like ERA-wise. He was like one of the top of the leagues in strikeouts. Again, nobody's saying that the Mets are pushing for a division. The Phillies are not even – if Philly fans or the Phillies are thinking about winning the division, then their mind is in the wrong place, right? Everybody's giving the Phillies all this credit when they won 87 and 90 games, and they have a ton of money on the books, and they have not done anything this year. Yet, everybody just projects them to be good. Really good, which makes no sense. And you look at a lot of the projections, and I know projections are projections, but the projections are the Phillies not being that much better than the Mets. And I'm not too far behind that either. Now, I think the Phillies are going to be just a tad bit better than the Mets this year as I do my projections later in the spring training. But, we have to remember, and people talk about the rotations. Yeah, Mike, I agree, right? Zach Wheeler is their ace. Zach Wheeler had a 3.5 ERA last year. Nobody had a better ERA in the starting rotation. Yet they won 90 games, and their offense was good. But again, they're the same team they were in 2022. They were a team that relied on home runs way too much. When they didn't hit home runs, you saw what happened in the playoffs against the Diamondbacks. They were hitting home runs earlier in the series. Then when they stopped hitting home runs, they could not put enough hits together to score runs. And this is why I'm a little bit more inclined to like the Mets. Even if they don't get JD Martinez, I would be a little upset. But if they do get JD Martinez, even still, I still like the fact that the Mets have guys that are not just pure home run guys. Now, you're going to need those home runs, absolutely, especially in the regular season. But, if you look at the Texas Rangers, and yes, they bludgeon people offensively, but nobody paid attention to how good their rotation was and how good their pitching was as well. Nobody talked about that. Yeah, their offense was extremely good. Even though they were scoring like 9 runs a game, they weren't giving up a lot of runs. And, it was the perfect storm. And by the way, that was a 90-win team that won the World Series, by the way. And again, I look at the National League. The Brewers just traded away Corbin Burns. How good are the Brewers going to be, right? The Cardinals had a terrible season last year. Now, I think they got better, but how good are they? Are they a 90-win team? They're probably around that. The Cubs, did the Cubs really get better? Now they might, they were talking about Ohtani and traded for Pete Alonso and all that stuff. They got Imanaga, and they'll probably get back Bellinger. Are they that much better? And they lost Stroman, by the way. So are they that much better than they were last year, or are they somewhat the same? So they're in the middle of the pack as well. Like the Reds are an up-and-coming team. What about the young kids? Are they going to have a sophomore slump? Like there's a lot of question marks with a lot of teams in the Central. The West is besides the two best teams in the National League, the Dodgers and the Braves, everybody else is right dead middle in the pack. I would say between 75 and 85 wins is probably the majority of the teams in the National League. And that's exactly where the Mets are, right around that area. So it's very possible. And again, the Mets won 75 games last year with everything going wrong. Unhealthy starting rotation, in shambles bullpen, no closer, even though Dave Robertson was the closer, but he wasn't supposed to be. The Mets lost Diaz. They never really had any type of middle relief. And everybody offensively, except for Brandon Nimmo, had a down offensive season. Alonso with his average, McNeil with his average, Lindor with his average. Now they hit the home runs, they hit the RBIs, but again, those guys like Lindor and Alonso, they got to be the 240s, the 250s, not the 220s, 240s, 230s that they were. Now, Lindor picked up his average later in the year, but again, I didn't care about August and September when it didn't matter. Alonso and Lindor need to hit 240s, 250s, along with those home runs or RBIs. McNeil's got to bat 300 or he's a useless offensive player. Brandon Nimmo is continue to do what he's been doing. That's perfectly fine. If Marte gives you anything this year, it's a plus that we didn't get last year. Who knows about, Alvarez. If Alvarez can hit the 20-plus home runs and get up that average a little bit, well, that's extra home runs you wouldn't probably thought of having in the lineup. So, yeah, but Mike, that's fine. But the Dodgers and Braves have been good the last couple of seasons, and they've got knocked out of the playoffs by teams that were worse than them. You see, so again, the Dodgers and Braves can win 100 games all they want. But the fact of the matter is, they've actually choked. And I talked about this with the Braves. They can win 100 games all they want during the season. They lost their leader in Freddie Freeman 2 years ago after the 2021 season. I said this. There is I don't care how good a team is, if you don't have a leader, when somebody punches you in the face, especially the Braves, once they get punched in the face in the playoffs, they didn't have nobody to turn to. Freddie Freeman was that calming factor, along with Swanson, which are both not on that team. Now, don't get me wrong, but Acuna was not healthy, wasn't on the team when they won the World Series. Acuna was an MVP and one of the better players in baseball the last 2 seasons. And he was a no-show in the playoffs. And they don't have leaders on that team. And you're going to tell me the Braves rotation got better? Where? Strider is terrible in the playoffs. He's very good in the regular season. They got a couple of guys that were coming off of injuries last year. They still got a couple of young guys that I think are going to be pretty good. But again, their rotation is not that potent as everybody believes they are. They got question marks in that rotation. The offense, nothing to talk about, right? We know they're going to be good. But, the Dodgers are the same way. Yeah, they get Ohtani, but Ohtani's never sniffed the playoffs, right? Who knows what he's going to do? He's not pitching this year, right? The Dodgers offense is deadly, right? Their rotation, is pretty good, but it ain't great. It's pretty good, right? And if you look, they got Yamamoto. Again, as good as he could be, we don't know what he's going to be in Major League Baseball, right? If he pitches to Kodai Senga, everybody's going to say he's great, but not going to give no credit to Kodai Senga, who did the exact same thing, right? So, and then Dave Roberts is a disaster waiting to happen, because I guarantee you, if the Dodgers don't win the World Series and get knocked out of the playoffs once again, who do you think they're going to blame? The only scapegoat they have left in Dave Roberts. No, home slice, he was not. He was a disaster in the playoffs. Look at the one series they played. He wasn't good at all. He wasn't good. Yeah, Mike. I mean, people said that last year, and look who made it. People said that in 2022. Who made it? An 87 win Phillies team and an 84 win Diamondbacks team. So let's before we crown these guys NL champs, can they actually perform in the playoffs again? Because again, the Dodgers, besides the pandemic year, choke every single year in the playoffs. Every single year. If you want to give them credit for the World Series for the pandemic, go right ahead. I will not. I give a hell of a lot more credit for the Braves in 2021 because they actually played a full season. With the way the setup now is for the playoffs, it's much harder, especially with that rest that they give and that bye that they give those teams. It's hard. Well, easy. They might resurrect Sale. They probably will, but Sale is also has to stay healthy. The Braves can't keep their pitchers healthy anyway. I don't care how good they are. They can't keep their guys healthy. Sale can pitch good. When Sale is healthy, you can say the same thing about Severino. When Severino is healthy, he can pitch to a 3.32 ERA. No problem. Sale, the same thing. If when he pitches, he's good, but he's not on the mound enough. So they can resurrect him all you want, but you can't keep guys healthy. It's not like the Braves have been, a poster board for health. Their pitching staff can't be healthy at all. Max Fried is a hell of a pitcher, but he's another one that hasn't been healthy. And in the big spots, he hasn't been been a good postseason pitcher. We got to remember how the Braves won the 2021 World Series. It was Charlie Morton, it was Jorge Soler and Eddie Rosario, along with Freddie Freeman and Swanson. None of those guys are on the team anymore. So we forget about that. Charlie Morton is, but he's a few years older as well. Ernie, I tend to agree, buddy. I tend to agree. I know we're going to get to the topics, but we ran off the path a little bit because of the chat, but that's always great. It's a good conversation to have. And at the end, the last topic, the roster projections, I'm going to talk about this. If you were with me and Chris a couple of days ago, we talked about we're going to do a full show. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to be. I don't know what day it's going to be. I'm presuming it's going to be a day or two before pitchers and catchers, just to talk about rosters. And, there's only a couple of spots, maybe one or two spots on the 26-man roster that could be available. Mostly it's probably going to be in the bullpen, but we're going to talk about it, especially if the Mets don't get another bat. It's probably mostly going to be bullpen, but we're going to wait and see. So let's get into it. The Mets get a bat. We'll wait and see. Again, as much as people are talking about why the Mets, opening up the pocketbook to get a Martinez or a Rosario or a Belt, well, the other teams aren't doing it either. So the Mets aren't the only team. If guys were coming off the board left and right and the Mets were holding their hands in their pocket, I could see you having an argument. But none of these teams are willing to open up their pocketbooks. They're just not. They're not doing it. We do it after Yamamoto signed. Snell and Montgomery would be off the board already. Montgomery is still waiting for the Rangers to get that TV deal. And Blake Snell supposedly only had one offer on the table from the Yankees, and I don't think the Yankees have that on the table anymore. So I don't know what the hell is going on. There's a lot of key free agents that can help teams, and nobody's making a push. So I just don't get it. Now, I believe Monday is where you're really going to start hearing things because, the 14th and the 15th is pitchers and catchers and full squad workouts. So we'll see. And Grant, you're right about the whole format now. It's crazy. All right, guys. So I wonder if the Mets are going to get a bat. It's really interesting to look at. I still think the Mets are gonna. I think Martinez is still gonna fall into the Mets' lap. I've said this for a month now, right? If Martinez was getting what he wanted in the open market, he would have signed already. He's clearly not getting it. So I think David Stearns has an open line and is communicating daily with JD Martinez and Scott Boras daily. And again, if Martinez got what he was looking for already, or a team was giving him what he was looking for, he would have been gone already. He would have been off the board. But clearly he's not. And David Stearns knows this. again, we're not giving enough credit for David Stearns because people don't believe he had a good offseason, which is fine. I don't think he had a great offseason, but I think it's a lot more solid than people are giving him credit for, because I don't think anybody is worth giving an astronomical contract to besides Ohtani and Yamamoto, and those guys went to the Dodgers. So, overspending for Snell, overspending for Montgomery, I don't think it's a smart play, especially when you're looking for guys that you need to be better. So, will I complain about it? No. If they do it, if they find a way to pull one of those guys in, great. But I think Martinez is falling into the Mets' lap. I think Stearns is playing it perfectly. And then, we heard the comments the last couple of days with Andy Martino, John Heyman, that, the Mets aren't on the verge of signing Martinez, but no other team is either. So that's why I think he's going to fall into their laps. And if Martinez happens to go elsewhere, I think the Mets are going to go after a Brandon Belt or an Eddie Rosario as, as a security blanket for a Vientos or another bench piece. Maybe they don't trust DJ Stewart enough. So I think that's a way to look as well. Austin Meadows, don't look at him. He's still got that mental health issue. He's trying to get back into baseball, but that's a dangerous game to play with him. Let him get healthy. But he is a outstanding player, but that mental health issue that he's been dealing with is tough. Yep, Christian, 14th pitchers and catchers. All right, guys. So we'll see what's going to happen. Again, I still am staying firm that the Mets are going to get Martinez, not because they're actively trying to land him, because I don't think they're really, having a ton of competition for Martinez. Because I thought the two teams that were really in on him was the Blue Jays that signed Justin Turner, and I think the Giants are going to land Soler, and that's the two places I thought he was really going to that were really going to give us an issue trying to land Martinez. I don't really see anywhere else he can go. I mean, there's always a team out there that could use a bat that might just pop up last minute, but I don't see where he's going. So the Dodgers are obviously out, right? I don't think the Red Sox are gonna be looking for another bat. So it's very interesting to look at. So I do wonder where else is he gonna go? I think he's just gonna bite the bullet and take the Mets deal, whatever they might be offering him. I think that's going to be the case, honestly, because he's not a versatile player. He's a DH. That's it. And I think a lot of teams that's why I don't think he's signed yet, because of the fact that I think that a lot of teams are not willing to give a guy $10 to $15 million for a guy who's only a DH. Justin Turner got $13 million, and he's versatile. He can play third base. He can play first base, and he can DH, right? Jorge Soler can play some outfield and be a DH. So he has versatility possibilities. JD Martinez doesn't. Yeah, once in a blue moon, he could play first base, but maybe a corner outfield once in a blue moon, but majority is going to be DH. So that's why I think a lot of teams are not going to be spending $10 to $15 million for a guy who is just a bat. I know that's funny to say, but a lot of teams like the versatility, because if JD Martinez does not hit, he is basically a weight bench. He's basically a dumbbell on the bench taking up a spot if he's not hitting. He can't do anything else. So I think that's the issue a lot of teams are looking at with JD Martinez, and why I think David Stearns is playing this perfectly. To be honest with you, I guarantee you if the Mets sign JD Martinez, it's going to be for less than $10 million. Just because nobody else is going to be giving him that. If he was getting $10 million, if he wants $10 million, why haven't a team give it to him yet? He would have been gone already, right? So I just assumed that a lot of teams are not going to be doing that. Chris, what's up, buddy? So with the bat, I still believe Martinez is going to land in the laps. Edwin Diaz, you saw the video. He talked today. Being in Port St. Lucie, threw a bullpen today. He looks healthy. He looks, a lot of people saying he's doing upper 90s already, which is nice to see. He had a full year to recover, which is always good with an ACL. That's always a good sign. So Edwin Diaz, crucial for the Mets bullpen. It only makes the bullpen better. You don't have to worry about the ninth inning, and that is crucial. I like the middle relief of the Mets, even if the guys that have high ERAs, the Fujinamis, the Lopez, those guys, even if they're not great or even very good, You still got Diekman. You still got Ottavino. You still got really guys that you can go out there and trust, that you have confidence in, because they had solid ERAs last year. Yes, the walks were up, the strikeouts were down, but they still had solid seasons. They stranded runners, which are important, and that's where we have to look at as well. And if either of those guys, the Lopez of the world, the Fujinamis of the world, the Cricks, the Austin Adams, the other guys that are coming on minor league deals, if any of those guys are even somewhat good, you even have a deeper bullpen now. And those are guys that are probably going to be pitching in the 6th inning, most likely. And, Drew Smith is way back in the bullpen. So it's an interesting bullpen. I think it can be a very good bullpen. Right now, I think it's probably, I would say, just a tad under. I would say solid. I would say just under above average. But I think it can be really good. Like, I think it's solid just for Rayleigh, Ottavino, Diekman, and Diaz. If Lopez or Fujinami, one of those guys, pitch pretty good, and Lopez pitched well in the World Baseball Classic, I think he can actually, I think his bullpen can be solid, really solid, to be honest with you. Yeah, the Trumpets are going to be fun. I hope he's going to pitch the first day in spring training, and, it's going to be a cool time to hear his trumpets. But, yeah, absolutely. So, again, pitchers and catchers, the 14th, Valentine's Day, is their first glimpse of pitchers and catchers. A lot of the players are down there already, so that's always a good sign. I really do like the fact that a lot of the guys that I'm worried about, Vientos, a lot of these guys, some of the guys that got spring training invites, major league invites, are already there in spring training. I have a friend there that has been that sent me a couple of videos that he was seeing the players come in through the stadium in Port St. Lucie. He lives around there, so he lives in the Fort Pierce area, which is right there. He was sending me pictures and videos of all the players coming in for the morning workouts and everything like that. So there's a ton of guys there already. And I know the Mets aren't the only team that has a lot of players there, but it is nice to see. So pitching and catchers on the 14th. Again, there's a lot to look at there. I think right now, if the Mets don't acquire another bat, I think the bullpen is where to look. The 5th starter and probably 1 or 2 bullpen spots that have an opportunity to make the 26-man roster going to opening day will be very interesting to look at. And me and Chris are really going to break it down a day or two before spring training, just going into spring training, what to look for and what roster spots are really available, because there's not a lot. As much as people are killing the roster and killing the offseason, the lineup, for the most part, is pretty much set. The bench, if they don't acquire another bat, is pretty much set. The bullpen is where you can finagle the long man. Is Drew Smith going to be a possibility? Is he going to get cut if he doesn't pitch well and somebody else does? There's a lot of looks. You can carry, I would say, no, what if the Mets, could the Mets carry 10 bullpen arms, and carry one less bench piece? Like, it's a lot to talk about. And me and Chris got into it a lot in the hot stove that me and him did together. But we're really going to go into detail with the projections on the roster in the next couple of days. So it's going to be very, very interesting. It's going to be a very short live stream today, guys. 2 more topics, then I'm going to call it a night. Just because I got some things to do before work. But Billy Epler news, it came out today that Billy Epler has been suspended for the year because of messing with the injured list. Guys who technically weren't injured or were not injured enough to be on the injured list, manipulating it to move roster spots and all that stuff. Everybody in baseball, every team, every front office does this. Why Billy Epler was the one that was scapegoated was because I think coaches, and I think it was Buck Showalter, being pissed off at the entire season that Billy Epler threw Vogelback down Buck Showalter's throat. You heard Buck Showalter talk about the analytics team saying Nimmo needs a day off because He ran too much the day before because he had a good day. And, I think Buck really just had he was just irritated with the whole front office. And I think Buck snitched, honestly, and probably a couple of coaches that left probably snitched to Major League Baseball. And that's why Billy Epler got suspended, because somebody ratted them out. I think everybody knows around baseball, if you watch baseball and a ton of teams, a lot of these guys who, might have an ingrown nail is on the injured list, and it manipulates the roster. You get to bring guys up, bring guys down, so all the teams do it. All the teams do it. I think somebody ratted out probably Buck or a couple of his coaches that are not on the team anymore, ratted them out, and it became an issue. The thing that I was worried about was I didn't care about Billy Epler getting suspended. I was worried that the Mets were going to get penalized draft pick wise. If they would have got a fine, whatever Steve Cohen could pay that, if he could just pull it out of his sock with a fine, I was worried about the draft pick or like international bonus, international signing money that they would take away from us. That's what I worried about. But the Mets didn't get penalized at all. No draft pick worries or international signing bonus, signing money, international pool money. Nothing was penalized at all, which that was what I was worried about. For a team that is focusing on getting those assets through the draft and internationally, you didn't want none of that penalized, because that would have been a problem. So from the training staff, yeah, and a lot of them are probably not on the team anymore either, because I think the Mets have a different training staff. Because if you look at the how they give everybody on the if you go on the Mets website, they show everybody, all the trainers, the analytical team, the training staff. There's only like one guy that I think the top training guy is the only guy that is still there. I think the assistant training guys and all that, they're all gone. It's all new people. So yeah, Sanders, but you know what? It comes up being the trainers most of the time, and then the doctors give the paperwork. And again, just because the doctors don't usually put them in the injury list, it's usually the trainer that says yeah in the front office. But you have to remember, when teams do this all the time, they put guys on the injury list all the time, and it's basically a front office decision. They can look up the medicals all they want. If the player says he's fine and he plays, he plays. The players can say, listen, I still feel a little bit of an issue. Let's just put you on a 10-day IL and get you 100% healthy or whatever. They do this all the time. So the doctors give the reports to the teams. The teams make the final decisions. So yeah, Deron, of course WFN is going to pick up on the Mets. That's what they do. Again, have you looked at the national report? Well, not really. I would say like the local reporters are just killing the Mets, mostly Andy Martino, which he always does. So we'll see. I like how Andy Martino backtracked on his $10 to $15 million spending left, because he was like, oh, it's not a hard cap. He just said it on a half stove about an hour ago. He said it. He goes, oh, it's not really a hard cap of that. So wait, you just said that the Mets only had $10 million to spend, and then it up to $15 million, and then he said, oh, it's not a hard cap anymore. So again, he's reporting out of his ass. Again, as soon as the JD Martinez story came out from Joel Sherman and John Heyman, I was waiting for an article from Andy Martino to negatively impact that dialogue that the Mets and Martinez had. And what happened? A few hours later, Andy Martinez came out with an article. Well, the Mets aren't really that close to Martinez, really not that really interested in a bat, but they could get, like, what are you talking about? That's not reporting at all. Like, you're basically, every good news, there's going to be an Andy Martino negative report. It's just that simple. Like, it's just annoying to me when he talks about that. Can't carry term relievers. There was a 13-man pitching staff limit. Oh, okay. So it's going to be 9. That's right, Christian. That's a great point right there. You can only carry 13 pitching staff limit. So 9, I would say. So they might only have to bring 8. Yeah, that's why the 6-man rotation is definitely not going to happen. So we'll see. Diaz. So right now they have, it's going to be very, very interesting, because right now the roster, I think, is set. They might be, that's why I think Drew Smith's on the bubble. And I know a lot of people like, Like, thank God. Like, Drew Smith might be the odd man out, honestly. Or maybe a Tonkin might be out. Maybe a Bickford. There might be a lot of those out. William, I think Martinez is going to land in the lap of the Mets, to be honest with you. I'm just being honest, because if I think Martinez is looking anywhere between $10 and $13 million. If a team was offering him that already, he would have signed already. So clearly, nobody is offering him $10 to $13 million. So, in my opinion, the teams that I thought were interested in JD Martinez, the Giants are probably going to sign Jorge Soler, and the Blue Jays, who I thought needed the bat, signed Justin Turner. They could be a team that pops up out of nowhere and signs him. But again, if Martinez is looking, I think Martinez is looking for $10 to $13 million. Why hasn't a team offered him that yet? Because he would have took that already. So, in my opinion, I honestly think that he is going to sign for probably between $7 and $9 million, which is insane to me for a guy. But again, I think it comes back. I really think it comes back to the fact that he is just a bat. He has no versatility. Jorge Soler can play the outfield. Justin Turner can play first and third, other than DH. So there's options there for these guys. So those guys could get that 13, 14, $15 million. I don't think JD Martinez is getting it, because I think teams are scared of giving guys $10 to $15 million who only can do one thing. Because if that one thing is not good, he's basically a bench warmer, because he can't play the field every day. And that's the problem. That's the problem with JD Martinez. Great numbers at bat, but if he's not doing anything with the bat, he is useless on a roster. That's why I don't think people want to give $10 to $15 million or between that to a guy like JD Martinez. The Dodgers, fine, $10 million, fine. But the Dodgers don't need him, right? The Braves aren't going to get another bat. The Phillies aren't looking like they're doing anything. So it's crazy to me. But again, even if it isn't JD Martinez, why couldn't it be an Eddie Rosario, a Brandon Belt? Guys too that had, Brandon Belt and Eddie Rosario had similar seasons. Brandon Belt can be that backup first baseman. Eddie Rosario can play corner outfield. Both of them hit 20 home runs last year, 20 plus home runs. Batted around, league average, and had a decent amount of RBIs. So, Belt worries me a little bit, because he only had like 60-something RBIs, if I'm not mistaken, 50-something RBIs. What that tells me, even with the 20 home runs, the majority of his RBIs were with home runs. Eddie Rosario at least batted 240, had almost 80 RBIs. Tells me that he put more bat on the ball to get runs in. Hector, yeah, it's a good argument for the Mets. But Hector, and shout out to Hector from Washington Heights, a guy who loves. And I heard your conversation yesterday. I think it was yesterday with Sal having an argument, and he called you out, Hector. He called you out. That's messed up from Sal. But shout out to Hector from Washington Heights, a known caller from WFAN. Yeah, look, Hector, I think JD Martinez is going to fall into our laps, because if he was going to get $10+ million from another team on the market, he would have been gone already. The fact that he's not gone tells me that nobody is willing to give him that. And I think that's where the Mets will come in. And I think there's going to be a situation with a lot of these players that they want to get to spring training. They don't want to come 2-3 weeks after. And I think that's the important part that we have to look at. I already said it. I said it on last hot stuff that I had with me and Chris. I think Monday is when JD Martinez is going to sign. I don't know if it's going to be the Mets, but I'd be shocked if he's not on a major league team by the start of full squad of workouts on the 15th, or at least when most teams have their full squad workouts. So we'll see. Well, I think JD Martinez is losing. Look, unless he's going to go to the Pirates or, the Rockies, or teams that really do have no shot and are going to be, the Pirates could be decent, but like teams that are like bottom dwellers, the Marlins, the Nationals. unless he's going to go to those teams, and I don't think those teams are going to spend that much money. There's not a lot of teams out there. I don't think the Braves are going after him. I don't think the Phillies are going after him. I don't see any of the Central teams. Seems like a lot of their rosters are set. I think if the Cubs do get a bat, it's going to be Bellinger. So you're looking at a lot of teams now. Seattle looks like they're shedding payroll. Boston doesn't look like they're going to sign anybody else. Toronto got their guy already. Baltimore is already not really spending money. They traded for Burns, added, $18, $19 million to that. So I don't know. Daniel makes a good point. JD Martinez has a chronic back issue that can pop up at any moment, and he's not versatile. And I think that's the reason why teams are shying away from him. A lot of these teams now love versatility. And if you got a little bit of versatility, they don't mind spending $10 to $50 million on a guy who could be a pretty damn good bat in a lineup. But if JD Martinez doesn't hit, he is sitting on the bench doing nothing because he can't play the field majority of the time, or even some of the time. Like if there's an injury, you're not thinking of JD Martinez playing a corner outfield or first base every day because he can't. Committee, yeah, but you could say that about a lot of teams. JD Martinez can be a solid bat for $10 to $12 million for a lot of teams. But again, why does Stearns have to give $10 to $12 million when he knows? I guarantee you, David Stearns already has. I guarantee he spoke to other teams and is in the know with a lot of teams. Again, if there was another team willing to give $10 to $12 million for Martinez would have been off the board already. We're not talking about that enough. Like, he would have been gone already. The fact that he's not gone tells me that teams are not willing to go to that length. It's not a lot. And there's no, again, I don't understand. Like, just because you have the money doesn't mean you have to overspend when you don't have to. If you can get JD Martinez on a $9 million contract and save $2 or $3 million, it might sound funny because you got the richest owner in baseball, but it makes smart baseball sense and business sense, right? The Yankees, why can't they get him? Why can't the Blue Jays get the Orioles get him? It's only $10 to $12 million. Hector, yeah, I already think it's happening. I think you already notice it. Like, Blake Snell reportedly only got one offer from the Yankees. Montgomery has gotten no offers and is still waiting for the Rangers to get a TV deal. Jorge Soler, one of the better bats on the market, still waiting. The Giants, who are willing to throw money around everywhere, why haven't they signed Jorge Soler or JD Martinez yet? You see what I'm saying? Yeah, Bellinger never got an offer yet. There's a pretty good chance he's going to end up back with the Cubs for a lot less than what he was thinking. I think they're colluding in a legal way. Like, I don't think they're communicating about it, but I think these teams now are not overpaying for players that they don't believe should be overpaid. Ohtani, understandable. Juan Soto next year, everybody's going to try to overpay. Right? But guys like Montgomery, who could be a number 2 at best, is a number 3. Is he worth $180 million, $190 million? Probably not. Blake Snell, Cy Young, but his walks are high, and if his strikeouts come down a little bit, he's probably not going to be as good as a pitcher, and you're going to give him $200+ million because of what he already did. That's the point. And the same thing with Jorge Soler. Jorge Soler opted out of his Marlins deal because he thought he was going to get a 3-year deal, probably close to $100 million. Well, guess what? He's probably not going to get anywhere near that. Same thing with JD Martinez. I think JD Martinez was probably looking for what Turner got, maybe a little bit more. He had a hell of a better year offensively than Turner. But why did Turner get $13 million? You don't think any team would have offered JD Martinez close to that? Martinez would have been off the board. The fact of the matter is, JD Martinez, with his chronic back issue, yeah, it haven't really crept up the last couple of years, but it could at any moment. And the fact that he can't play a position regularly enough, or even, 3 or 4 days a week, worst case scenario, if there's an injury, he is a bat. And if he's injured or doesn't hit, he is useless for a team. And I think that's why teams are not willing to go that $10 million mark or higher. And why I think he's going to land on the Mets for a little bit less. No, I wouldn't say talk to other teams, but I think he has enough knowledge and enough understanding of why these players are not on, hasn't signed yet. Hector, I'm okay with that. I don't care about the money. To me, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to games like a fool, just like you going to these games regardless if JD Martinez is in the lineup or not. But the fact of the matter is, we can say that, yeah, I think it's worth it. Give him $18 million. But if you don't have to, why should you? That's the point I'm trying to make. If teams are willing to give JD Martinez $18 million, he would have been gone already. But the fact of the matter is, David Stearns, again, we can talk about small market Stearns all you want. The fact of the matter is that if he pulls off a JD Martinez for less than $10 million, he's a fucking genius. Because he played it right down the middle perfectly. Now, I don't agree. I say, listen, if JD Martinez has a couple of 1 year $9 million deals, give him 1 year $12 million. Why don't I give a shit? I don't care. I already spent on season tickets. I already spent a ton of money on jerseys and hats. I'm flying down to spring training in 2 weeks. Like, my money's already invested in this team regardless. Just like it is every freaking year, regardless of the offseason. I bought my season tickets before the offseason started. So regardless of what happened, I'm already invested. So the fact of the matter is, look, we all would say, why don't you just throw him a 1 year, $50 million contract? You probably take it. He probably would because he ain't getting nowhere near that probably. Now, if 2 days from now he signs for 1 year, $13 million, say with, I don't know, pick a team. With the Padres, I don't know. Then he can be like, oh, shit. Damn, they should have just done that then. Yeah, heck, I understand that. But that's the other point, too. The fact of the matter is that you're doubling the price for any player you bring in here. You know, we might not give a shit, but if David Stearns, and I don't think Cohen is telling him don't do that, because I think if he goes to Cohen tomorrow and say, listen, the Padres offered JD Martinez 1 year, $12 million. I want to give him 1 year. I want to give him an extra million or two just to land him. Cohen's not going to say no. So, you know, again, that $10 million is 20. If that $18 million is, 29. If that $9 million, 18. But the fact of the matter is, if he can do that and he lands Martinez, it's going to be less than a lot of people think. The fact of the matter is, David Stearns is not doing anything different than almost every other team in baseball are doing. Teams that could use the bat, why haven't they just said, let's just give him 1 year, $13 million? And I guarantee you, there's going to be teams, like if there's a team that signs JD Martinez for 1 year, $10 million, there's going to be Met fans that are going to be absolutely going insane, which I agree with. But if he signs with the Mets for less than $10 million, who's going to complain? Because there's going to be teams that are going to be, biting their tongue saying, shit, we should have done that. Again, Montgomery and Blake Snell are top 3 starters. Some might say Blake Snell's an ace or a number 2. Montgomery, I think if he pitches great, he could be a great number 2, but he's probably a number 3. So why ain't they off the market? A lot of people need pitching because nobody wants to pay them at their price. Because why should you if you don't have to? Yeah, Hector, that's fine. But again, they also, 2 weeks ago, Andy Martino, among other reporters, said the Mets are done. If they do get one reliever, it's going to probably be a lower priced reliever, and that's it. Yet, a week and a half ago, they signed 3 relievers, decent relievers for around $12 million. So the reporters were wrong on that. And then Andy Martino just went on Hot Stove and says, well, that $10 to $50 million is not really a hard budget cap. Like, what are you talking about? You can't tell me the Mets are done with their bullpen, and then they sign 3 relievers 2 days later, and then you talk about $10 to $50 million, and then after that $12 million they spent on 3 relievers, they talked to Rosario, talked to Martinez over the last 4 days. So if they do land one of them, it's going to be above the $15 million mark, closer to $20 million that they spent. So those reports were wrong yet again. Right? Fujinami, Diekman, and Ottavino. Not one reporter said that they were talking to these guys. Ottavino went on Mets Hot Stove and Baseball Night in New York and said, the reason why I didn't opt back into the contract because I don't know their direction, yet he signed back with the Mets. Robert, they came down on Epler because somebody ratted them out. Yeah, Hector, but no. His first report, go back to his first report. He says the Mets have roughly $10 to $50 million to work with. He's talked about a hard cap. Now he's pushing against it and trying to save face once again. Because Andy Martino never says anything positive about the Mets, right? The JD Martinez dialogue came out from John Heyman, Joel Sherman, and a couple of other reporters. 2 hours later, Andy Martino came out with a negative report trying to shut it down because that's what he does. He never comes with a positive report from any source because his sources are the reporters that already talked about stuff. He is the worst possible person to talk about because he went from $10 to $50 million hard cap to now $10, $50 million soft cap. And he also reported prior to the Ottavino, Diekman, Fujinami signings, he says the Mets might go after one more reliever, probably around the $5 million or less. Now, he was right about the $5 million range or less with the relievers, but he never said they were going to go after multiple relievers. He said they were done. Maybe be one more. And they landed 3 around the $10 to $50 million range altogether. So if their cap is what it is, and he's right about that, then why are they talking to other bats in Rosario or Martinez? Because any one of those signings are going to put them over that mark. I'd rather Salicata too. Look, I when Salicata was the overnights for WFAN, I work overnights. So I was constant listening to Salicata from beginning to end. Right? I love his passion. Right? I know a lot of people don't like him, but I love his passion. He reminds me of me just blurting shit out and being a loudmouth. Well, heck, Andy Martino is a show. Like, let's be honest. He will make sure he'll go above and beyond giving positive reports to the Yankees than the Mets. Just that simple. Yeah, I work overnight, and look, and that's how I know Hector is a staple. He called Salicata every night. They would go on for 10 minutes. Like, that's why the overnights are great. You know, Hector gets cut off now because he's in the midday with BT. But like, damn, like I used to like the conversation with Hector and Sal going after it, you know, going back and forth for 10 minutes overnight. I miss that shit. Like, I saw Hector at the Queens Baseball Convention. First time I ever met him, right? Cool guy, great guy, knows his shit. You know, we all have our opinions, right? Not everybody's going to agree with it. Sometimes you're wrong, sometimes you're right. Sometimes, you know, we're a bunch of assholes. But that's the best part about sports. Like, sports wouldn't be as good without difference of opinions and arguments. No, Hector, I understand that. But even when the Mets were going good in 2022, Andy Martinez was going with these reports like, oh, these stupid reports. He was always coming up with negative reports. You go back, find the Andy Martino report in 2022. I guarantee you something negative was happening when the Mets were doing good. Because that's what he does. Like, Andy Martino, just report the news. Don't give me your negative lack of opinion. That sucks. Let us be negative, right? The people who spend the hard-earned money watching garbage for year after year after year and having the occasional success. and then getting punched in the mouth. Let us be negative. That's what we do. Let us complain and bitch and moan. You're supposed to report the news from whatever sources you have. Don't give me your opinion, because he keeps on saying, oh, like if it was your source that says it's a hard $10 to $50 million cap, don't come back 2 weeks later after the Mets spent just around that number on relievers that you said they were only going to get probably one more reliever and ended up having 3 for around $10 to $50 million, right in that between that number. And now you came out with like, oh, well, that it's a soft, it's not really a hard cap. Yet I heard the Mets are interested in Rosario. They had dialogue with Martinez. Any one of those, but even Brandon Belt, even if they sign Rosario or Belt for $5 to $7 million, that's over the number that they said. When he said 3 weeks ago that it was a hard cap and said the Mets weren't going to get any more bullpen arms, maybe one for a limited contract. I think Buck and coaches were out. There you go, Hector. Well, we know Sal and Martino, they work together, so Sal's not going to say anything bad about Martino. Like, I know, Hector, you tried over and over again. I love every time. And Hector, you used to talk about Martino all the time. And Sal was like, no, he got his sources. He knows his stuff. He's reporting the news. Like, Sal's not going to say anything bad about somebody he works with. He's just not. Especially when they're constantly together on Baseball Night in New York and Mets Hots and, all the time. Like, it's just not happening. Like, Urshela is another one. Yeah, I can see that. Stezo, February 14th is pitchers and catchers, and February 15th is full squad workout. All right, guys, so let's end this stream right now. And Hector, I do appreciate you hanging out on the chat and give me your opinion. I always appreciate that. Hector, I already told you, maybe before opening day, I'll have you on so people can get to know you if they don't know you a little bit more, and you can have your opinion. So I'd love to have you on at some point before opening day. I'll message you on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and we'll try to work it out. So roster projections, as I said, K-Mets, give me let me type my email in the chat. That's my email. Guys, make sure when you email me through my channel email, please put a subject, whatever it is, and let me know you're from the channel, because I get a ton of promotions and companies and all this nonsense. So if I miss you, I apologize. But when I get somebody randomly just emailing me, I will miss it. So please put a subject there, some title or subject, so I can see it. Because if I see a subject and if you don't have nothing, just an email there, I scroll through it, because there's so many emails I get daily from companies and sponsors and YouTube information and all that crap. So please, K-Mets, maybe I will go to Miami when the Mets play, but I won't be in Miami during spring training. I'll be in Daytona Beach. Kevin, how you doing? But K-Mets, listen. If I do head down to Miami to watch the Mets, I will hit you up. So please email me. All right. So roster projections, guys. Me and Chris talked about this on the last hot stove. We're going to do K-Mets. I will definitely let you know. Excuse me. Me and Chris we're already talking about it in our group chat. We are going to do a full show just about the roster. Not about free agents or anything else, trades or whatever. We're going to talk about directly roster projections. Who do we think is going to be the 26-man roster? As of right now, it's pretty much set. I think there's a bullpen arm or two that could be possibly kicked out for somebody else. That's what we're really going to be focusing on. But again, if the Mets sign a bat, that really takes away somebody from the bench. And I think we know who that is. It's probably DJ Stewart. So we'll get into that. Me and Chris are working on that now. We're working on names and backgrounds and all that fun stuff. So the visual looks good. So we're gonna bring that to you probably a day or two before pitchers and catchers, so we can take a real deep dive into the roster projections going into spring training. So you can look at some names that you might have not heard of or remembered, because very, very early in the offseason, the Mets signed a ton of minor league arms, bullpen arms, or possible depth pieces in the minors, starting pitching wise as well. You know, McGill, Vazo, Lucchesi, all those guys as well. So once again, with that said, guys, another Mets hot stove in the books. 5 days away from pitchers and catchers, and 6 days away from full squad workout in Port St. Lucie. I will be down in Port St. Lucie February 22nd to the 26th. I'll be at game number 1 of spring training on the Saturday and the 24th. I'll be checking out condos out there because I might be moving between April and May to Florida officially. That's to be determined. I will let everybody know about that as well. But with that said, guys, we talked about if the Mets are going to acquire a bat. We'll see. Diaz looking good on his bullpen. Pitchers and catchers on the 14th. Billy Epler news. It didn't affect the Mets. Mets didn't get penalized draft pick or international signing pool money. That's a good sign. And roster projections, me and Chris are going to go at it deep dive into the roster projections and the names to look at that could possibly make the 26-man roster on opening day, a day or two before spring training. Live stream, deep dive into the roster. With that said, everybody, thank you for watching another Mets Hot Stove. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. With that said, have a great night. Let's go Mets. See you next time, guys. Great chat with you guys. Have a good night. Let's go Mets. Have a good night, guys.